Adam, welcome to the show. Man, we've got New Orleans in the house 2 episodes in a row. How is the weather in New Orleans right now?
It's getting warmer. We had a bad rainstorm overnight, but it's getting back to normal New Orleans heat and humidity later
Yeah.
today, I think.
Tell us a little bit about your medical background, your medical history, where you started and where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a pediatric anesthesiologist here in New Orleans at the Children's Hospital here. I grew up in Baton Rouge, went to LSU. I was actually a philosophy major in college slash pre-med. Always wanted to be an anesthesiologist since I was like 7 years old. Ended up doing med school and residency here in New Orleans at LSU and went to Pittsburgh for my pediatric anesthesia fellowship. Then worked in the University of Oklahoma for a few years at their children's hospital. And I was actually assistant program director and then program director for the fellowship for a year each before we moved back to New Orleans about 5.5 years ago now, once my older son was born, just to be a little bit closer to family. My wife's originally from North Carolina, but had been in New Orleans for about 10 years before we moved to. So it was kind of home for her too. So
Yeah.
nice to be back home.
Back home in New Orleans, and your wife, something originally from North Carolina, is she a physician as well?
She's not. She has a master's of public administration and was working for one of the neighboring parishes. Um, but since we had kids, she's been staying home with him.
That's
So she
awesome.
gets to run the place.
Yeah, that's awesome. Adam, talk a little bit about your background in real estate. What was your first deal?
So right after, so I guess fall of 2019, I had been aggressively paying my student loans off, doing the whole index funds, paying the loans off kind of thing. Um, and the rate at which I was paying them off, I was going to be done mid 2020. So I started kind of looking at what I was going to do with all this extra money that I'm not paying student loans with. So started looking into real estate. I actually took, I think, one of the first sessions of semi-retired MD's like course. Got really excited. My wife is going to be, as mentioned, she's stayed home with our one son at that time. Um, she was going to be a real estate professional. It was going to save me all this money, all this kind of stuff. She was less excited about that.
Yeah.
Um, and by the time we actually started the course, she had gotten pregnant for our second son. Then a month later, COVID hit. So that kind of slowed that down. Ended up decided not to do long term. That's when I started learning about short term rentals. Um, Actually, I think I invested in my first syndication summer of 2020. Um, really without a whole lot of knowledge about them
Hmm.
previously. But then got kind of diving into tax strategy and whatnot. Um, got started looking into short-term rentals. We ended up buying one in Asheville, North Carolina. Um, Kind of around the same time, I was also getting certified as a life coach. So I actually did some coaching for other physicians at the time too. Um, we bought, we contacted, like I said, my wife was from North Carolina, so we had started looking at the Smokies, and she's like, "I'd prefer North Carolina side if we're going to do it instead of the Tennessee side." So contacted a real estate agent on a Sunday. On Monday, we had a phone call with her. On Tuesday, she sent us a listing. On Wednesday, we had a FaceTime viewing of it. On Wednesday afternoon, she had brought a property manager to see it, and we had a signed contract that night.
Oh, wow. That's
Uh,
quick. What was the process for you finding that agent?
so I actually had signed up for a short-term rental course at the time. At the time, I believe it was called Lifestyle Asset University or something like that. I think it's called 𝗏𝗏cy now. So their whole thing is finding a reputable management first. So I actually had found the property manager first that I liked, and interviewed and like talked to a few of them. So she was one of the property manager's recommended agents.
What are some of the investment objectives that you would love to hit besides, the lifestyle by design kind of thing? I want to go somewhere, I want to be somewhere I would want to go. But as far as actual returns on the property, total amount invested, return, like what are some of the parameters that you're looking at on the short-term side?
I think I'm pausing for now.
Yeah.
After the last one, but what I was coming in looking for was after management, still being able to get 15 to 20%. I think it's a lot harder than it was, in 2020, but that was kind of what we were looking for. And I mean, it's doing better than we had originally projected. So.
Yeah. 15-20% strictly on the cash flow or other parts of it?
No, strictly on cash flow.
Cash flow.
That's what I was looking on to do.
Very cool. Very cool. What's the biggest draw for you, Adam, of going business acquisition versus staying in the real estate world? What are the pros and cons, the difference between the two?
So it is a bigger return, but it's a lot more, work involved. With the, acquisitions, you're buying a known cash flow and team and whatnot. Typically you're buying most Main Street businesses, small to medium businesses, at 3 or 4 times cash flow, opposed to the 1% rule that you're buying most real estate at 10 times cash flow. So there is a lot higher potential. So then my thought is using that cash flow to then buy real estate.
Interesting. And can you set up your structure in that franchise world of having your income come to you passive, or will you be directly involved, like the material involved piece? Because I'm just thinking, if you acquire that business and you're able to have that income as passive income, then you can still use the passive losses from your real estate venture to offset.
So I'm sure there is a way. But also, depending on the type of businesses you buy, you still get bonus depreciation for all of the equipment and stuff. So theoretically, if it's active, then that can go against, depending on when you buy it and whatnot, that can go against if it's an equipment heavy business, that can go against your active income too.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, all the little plays, it's like, it's like a chess game going through.
I think surrounding yourself with people outside of medicine has been very helpful to me. Learning as much as you can, getting yourself in those rooms of difference. Because I know when I started joining different organizations with more business entrepreneurs and stuff like that, like literally my head exploded. And I'm like, I could do that, I could do this. Like I will also just go to different meetings. I've been to real estate guys, like successful syndication course. Like I went to a business like entrepreneurial like meeting in Columbia, Missouri last fall, and just met different people. I've done like Tony Robbins events, like just getting comfortable being uncomfortable, I think has been absolutely amazing. And just learning different things, always being a learner or being like curious about things has been the biggest thing for me.